Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another AI news show. Today, myself and my co-host Kevin Kieller will be talking to Roger Rohatgi, who's the Chief AI Officer at Chai, for an insightful discussion on AI agents and their impact on business and society, and I suppose the long-term evolution of AI from past to future. But for now, Kevin, how are you? Good to see you again.
Yeah, no, it's good to see you, Rob. And it feels like since the last time we talked, I don't know, a year's worth of news has happened. So certainly lots in the news of late that relates to AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, lots on the AI model front. I mean, we've had DeepSeek come through from China. We've had Europe jump in on the AI model front with Mistral.ai. What do you think to all this? All these LLMs now, Kevin. Are we? What's happening here? Are they just carbon copies of each other, or are they fundamentally different?
Well, I think that there's fundamentally they're different. There's a lot of similarities, but I think that there's tons of investment in this space. And I took DeepSeek for a whirl and threw different questions at it and a whole bunch of different models, and each has its own personality. Each does better in some areas, and so I think what we're seeing is just it'll be interesting how all of this research then combines to hopefully bringing us a model that delivers accurate results. But yeah, DeepSeek was certainly interesting in that it changed the financials potentially of what it takes to train a model.
Yeah, yeah. And then I was playing with Mistral, the app, the other
Right.
day, and oh my God, it's fast. I couldn't believe how fast it was generating the responses. I mean, it's crazy. So I don't know what kind of compute power they've got, but it certainly was impressive. So
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of optimization now with like, do you run it on the edge with small, language models, large language models in the cloud? Do I run it on my own hardware because I don't want to pay the APIs? So I think that as people start solving, getting the job done, I think then we'll go through this whole optimization stage, and it's complicated. So I think that this is fascinating times to be trying to deliver real value with some of this exciting new technology.
yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the gift that keeps on giving is OpenAI. Lots on the OpenAI front. We've just seen Operator come through, which we're going to talk about today. But more than likely around the agentic AI or AI agents,
Yes.
product front. So, but just in the last couple of days, Elon's made a bid for OpenAI. AI, it appears. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody can really describe what's going on with Elon, but I mean, yeah, obviously he and Sam Altman have this ongoing feud. They started as, it seems like they started as friends, and now maybe that's the biggest feuds are friends that become, more frenemies or enemies. Yeah, so now he's trying to buy OpenAI. I think it's just part of this ongoing. He's both suing them and trying to buy it. So it's certainly a fantastic soap opera. Maybe they'll make it into a Netflix movie in the future, and it'll be certainly very entertaining.
I'm sure they will. And one Netflix episode is not going to be, I suppose, hugely interesting. But the world leaders have joined together this week to gather in Paris for the AI Action Summit, which talking policy and how the world's going to, I suppose. I suppose the impact of AI on society overall. But I mean, any thoughts on that at all?
Well, I think that the impact, I mean, is going to be huge, but we just don't know exactly where it's going to be huge in terms of, restructuring jobs, the ethical ramifications, and having, not having bias in the model. Of course, all the countries, they want to win the race, but at the same time, they want to put in place, regulations to keep things fair, although that's a very complicated thing when you're both trying to win the game and then, kind of regulate other people. So I think that, yeah, just super fascinating times. And, it's going to, have big societal impacts. And I'm sure we're going to get into that topic with Roger.
Yeah, let's move on from ethics and regulations and move on to something a lot more exciting. So, I'd like to welcome today's guest speaker, Roger Rohatgi. He's the Chief AI Officer at Chai. Welcome, Roger. How's it going?
Hey, great to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And Roger, I mean, maybe just before we kick off, I've, looked at your LinkedIn profile, and lots of history and expertise uh, across the kind of resume front. Could you just, for our audience, just introduce yourself and take us a little bit through what you've been doing recently?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. Spent the last 25 plus years in design, in a lot of ways in technology, right? And kind of that pushing those boundaries for innovation. So back in the 90s, started in graphic design and then into Flash, and web design and all that fun stuff back then, which led me to user experience and for all the things that were rising in digital. Produced an independent film that won an International Film Award for along the way, but then helped launch social TV. We partnered with people like Mark Burnett, who created Survivor and The Voice, to be able to launch interactive television, which was pretty pioneering at its time. Some of the stuff ended up going even into the app called Vine, I think. So it was a precursor to a lot of different things. And along the way, I've been able to just get deeper and deeper into tech and lead design at different companies, SaaS software to global companies like Motorola, as well as most recently at BP, where I was the first chief design officer in their 100-year history, leading design all over the globe. And it was a lot of scale and a lot of awesome people that we were able to work with, and some real challenges that we were able to take on. Now most recently, at Chai, as you mentioned. But the journey for me with AI really got going in about 2018, where I had focused on a way to bring together a lot of these technologies along with AI for something for Oracle, and ended up winning the Oracle Global CX Innovation Award. And back then I was calling it augmented intelligence. And so that kind of just kept leading me deeper and deeper. And so at BP, I got a chance to work with MIT on what the future of AI and humans will kind of how they'll interact in the workplace. And then with Harvard and a group called Fantasy in 2023. With building digital twins, the first digital twins documented of our customers, called synthetic humans, which was pretty exciting, and now will be one of the first things taught around this in Harvard Business School. So,
Well, I love the transition that, from the user experience, which we've traditionally thought of as a graphic design, as you said, into, AI and the user experience. I mean, I remember, Rob, we had Gurdeep Paul on, and he was talking about how interfaces are moving away from being visual, potentially to be voice with these, AI agents. So I love how you connected the dots, Roger, and I haven't really heard that clear articulation before. So fantastic point.
well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I truly believe that the AI of tomorrow needs the UX of today. Because this is still about a human problem, right? This is still about human needs and human challenges and the user expectations. So how do we really get that? We've got to leverage those principles, great principles of user experience and UX and that practice to be able to glean those insights so that then we can apply that to a new, I guess, horizon of an agentic world, right? So at Chai, we call it human-centered AI.
Human-centered AI. Look, I've heard lots of ways of kind of framing digital twins and AI agents, autonomous agents, and agentic AI up recently. But ultimately, what are we talking about here, Roger? Maybe you could give us a little bit of an introduction. What exactly is an AI agent, if we're going to call it that for today, and how do they work?
Yeah, and I mean, you're right about a lot of definitions, right? So people may have a different one than even what I give, right? But I'll share how I view it, and Kevin, I think like it was awesome that you picked up on that human-centered side or that UX side, because I mean, I think that's really at the end of the day what I hope that these agents end up doing is basically amplifying human potential, and where we can go with that. We can talk more about that later, but I guess at its core, right? An AI agent probably can be defined as like a smart system, if you will, that can think and learn and make decisions on its own. It can complete tasks without any human intervention and work autonomously. So that agent or system of agents can be called agentic AI. So you have an AI agent working and going from generative AI, where our things that we're used to, like ChatGPT and even Mistral that you just mentioned. That we put a prompt in and it gives us information back and generates that information, and we're able to consume it, moves from that to now being able to act autonomously on that information. So for instance, if I'm trying to say, hey, what's the latest, maybe I go on ChatGPT and I say, hey, give me the best times to be at this particular, country, for this particular occasion, for this particular price, right? And then let's say it's my anniversary or whatever. It's going to give me back all sorts of kind of interesting details. It might even give me photos of what it even looks like there. And it might give some recommendations of where to stay or what to do. But then that's a generative side of things. But moving into an agentic side, then you might have the GPT or turn into the agentic side where the agent then says, okay, well, would you like us to, we've also found you the cheapest flights at the best times. Would you like us to book that, or would you like me to book that? And then if you say yes, it books it, but then it also books your car, books your hotel, books your reservations at the restaurants that you and your significant other want to go to, and maybe even the shows that you might want to take in while you're there. Sends me a reminder that I need to make sure that I tell the person at the hotel that the gift is coming that I ordered for her, because that was the anniversary gift that I'm going to give her at that time. So all of that could be done with agents, and almost it could be done in a multi-agentic fashion where you have, like I said, a system of these agents working together, taking action.
Well, so, I mean, that sounds super exciting. Businesses right now are at all different stages, right? So some of them are fearful. Some of them are super excited. And some of them are dipping their toes in the water or pulling back or thinking it's overhyped. What do you see as the blockers to, businesses leveraging, whether it's generative AI and specifically, the new agentic AI, because I guess this is what 2025 is, the year of the agents, right? So what are blocking businesses in your experience from leveraging this technology?
Yeah. Let's jump into that, because I think it's an interesting thing, that even what we're seeing right now in the market. But I think before we jump into the blockers, there's a landscape around it, right? That we need to know look at what's going on around it, right? So, and it's interesting because you're right. It's generative going to agentic, but I see these merging to something I've been calling agentive. So not right. So
that's what we need. Yeah.
Right. But that's a combination of the two, right? So, and I think, I'm sure other people have said that term as well, but agentive is kind of the combination, because you're going to need the generative aspects to be a part of that agentic flow. But I think if you look at the context of what's happening, first and foremost, like, how is the tech world seeing how this is going to help companies, right? So Sam Altman, right, OpenAI, like you mentioned, he said something interesting. He said, we believe that in 2025, we may see that the first AI agents join the workforce and materially change the output of companies, right? So again, before we get to the blockers, it's interesting to see that Sam Altman and OpenAI see that this is actually how they're going to begin to join the workforce and change things. So it's kind of more of an air of inevitability almost, right? And the other side is Jensen Huang said that, the NVIDIA CEO said that the IT department of every company is potentially going to be the HR department of AI agents in the future. Now, when I think about that, I'm like, wait a minute. So maybe it goes even further, right? It's so if he's saying that the IT department is going to be the HR of the future for AI agents, the way I kind of see it is, and what we've been seeing is that some of these agents can begin to spawn themselves, and so maybe those AI agents become their own HR of the future, right? So it could be quite interesting. So when you look at that, and when you look at that big picture, it's interesting to see how the outside world of the tech world perceives how this will be embedded into companies. But in business itself, there's still a lot of those hurdles, like you mentioned, and blockers. So some of those is simply not even knowing what is the use case or the best use case to bring these agents to life in their workflow, right? And so it's, how do we discover those real world examples and those use cases that we can apply this technology to, and where does it make sense to leverage that with, of course, humans in the loop, so that there is, it truly is an augmentation and not a replacement. I think there's also, barriers of trust and, transparency. Am I talking to or working with an AI agent? How do we clarify that? there's of course all the things that everybody else has been talking about too, especially like you mentioned at the summit that's going on right now. Around last year was around security. Now it's around like how do we take off these these restrictions and restraints and run with this? But there's still a hesitation and fear, right? Data privacy, security layers of how it might act on its own, for warfare and all sorts kind of other things. Think all the way back to the 80s of the War Games movie. You go, oh man, definitely don't want to play chess with Joshua. So, or what do they call it? Thermonuclear war, or whatever it was. But so I think that but the hurdles and the barriers right now really go back to something that we could probably solve easily by leveraging what we talked about earlier, is good user experience. So really getting in and understanding what are the challenges, what are the problems that people are really having in these companies, and how can we leverage now this technology, knowing what it can do and knowing how we can build it, and applying it to that. So that may be a more simple way to look at it, but other than all the legal issues and the complexity in that world, that might be the probably the best way to tackle it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, Roger. In terms of your company, Chai, focuses on human-centered AI. What does that actually mean in practice, and what are the kind of real-world applications you're working on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So human-centered AI is a term that we leverage to explain how that we've blended together all this rich history of this company, but also of what we've done in our practice, like I mentioned, around combining behavioral science, human-centered design, along with really deep engineering expertise with AI and now agentic AI. And so that combination of research and behavioral science, along with understanding what users need with now AI, is kind of how we look at it and why we call it human-centered AI, because every solution that we use in AI is going to start with a human, or it should start with a human. It should start with a human problem and human need, and it should serve the purposes of humans. Maybe a little nod to the Isaac Asimov concept of the robot laws. But I think the way we see that working is, again, getting in there and understanding the challenges, but seeing how we can make those a lot more efficient, right? So we know that there's a lot of different pain points, and I'll give you like an example in maybe in the procurement space in some companies, right? So there's a lot of bottleneck for suppliers to be able to get vetted, and it takes a long time, and then there's lots of things that they have to do to submit their bids or whatever. And on the procurement side, they've got to create the bids and raise the bids and post them and or the RFP or whatever, and then get the bid, sorry. And then they have to act on it, and there's all these people in the loop and stuff. So we need those people, and we need them to oversee that process, but there's so much more they could be doing to enable the future of the relationship with vendors and partners and suppliers and so forth, as well as other things, because sometimes that breaks down. And I think if you look at a scenario of what AI agents can do, you can see how that can help the procurement teams and people in the process by simply having an agent review the bids that the agent puts out the RFP, the agent reviews the bids come in, and the agent then selects the best bid based upon that criteria that it thinks is the right bid. And then it goes beyond that to say, okay, now I'm going to raise the PO, the purchase order. Now I'm going to purchase the product. And then I'm going to now trigger the shipping of that product and track it across the ocean and then all the way into the job site or warehouse, out to the field, whatever. And all that process happened in a multi-agentic manner. But humans were approving and all along the way, and there was an interactivity. So that's one example of how we can build these right now. But some of the things that we're also seeing is leveraging different types of tools to be able to create better customer experience with not just chatbots that you type and retrieve information, but actually having almost very real conversations with voice. Of course, there's question: do we let people know that this is an AI agent and this is AI? And that that's something we need to test. But it's certainly something that we could see happening. But some of the problems that we're solving now with some companies are quite interesting around that, and also using computer vision to be able to leverage, being able to take AI to be able to see things that needs to count or manage or test for quality. That's a really big area, and so being able to move these workflows into an agentic manner and then have customers approve throughout that. It's quite interesting. One of the last things I think we're seeing is the rise of the way that these conversational agents are acting on their own in such a way that they would be open to actually negotiate. So there was an example that recently was on the internet, but of a team that showed that the AI agent was trying to book so logistics delivery, and the agent with a human, and so the agent told the human this time, and they kind of negotiated on the schedule, and then they said. The human said, well, how much is it going to cost me? The agent told the human how much it cost. The human said, hey, listen, I think it's too much. Can you do it better on the price? And the agent says, hey, let me put you on hold for a minute. Let me talk to my manager, and calls a real human, tells the human what's going on. The human says, yeah, I can approve just this much, but not anything more than that. The AI agent says, hey, thanks, and gets on the call and negotiates the price with the human and says, hey, this is what our best offer, and then closes the deal, then pings the manager on Slack or whatever that the deal is done. So there's this area that we're diving into, which is very similar to that same scenario.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I was thinking, Rob, when Roger was talking about, this, now you can have pretty realistic voice interactions with some of these agents. I wonder how long it'll be before we have to reveal that our guest is actually an AI chatbot. So, but because AI, Roger, I think a lot of the audience and people that are kind of new to this with the Chat GPT coming on the scene, they may think that AI is brand new, but this has really been an area of deep research for a really long time. Maybe just give us a thumbnail sketch of, kind of how long this AI, research has been going on, because I know you've been part of it, as you said, for a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, long period of time in a relative short amount of time, if you can imagine, because we've all kind of got going. I would say it really got going for the world on November 30th, 2022, right? That was the day that ChatGPT in its form that everybody knows today began, right? So, or was announced. So that was kind of an accelerated thing. And so, yeah, but getting a chance to be a part of it a little bit earlier than that has been exciting. But I mean, just to your one point on having, maybe we have, like I mentioned earlier, a synthetic human as a guest on the show could be quite interesting. I mean, there's a tool that just came out. It's called Pickle AI, where I don't know if you've seen Pickle AI, but so you can go on a Zoom call, and it'll be your complete avatar. You'll look like you. Your mouth will move, but you're just on the couch in your PJs talking, and you're so you don't actually have to come on camera, but you're actually on camera. And so it's like as if I'm talking right now, my mouth is moving, but I'm, also, trying to get PlayStation Network to work and I'm gaming, right? So that's, I mean, it's a real reality of not just a podcast show, but even in work that might happen, and people will put their I guess, well, I don't know if they're calling it their pickle, but whatever it is. but history wise, right? I think that's interesting because this year marks, from my research, the 70-year anniversary of when AI, or the word artificial intelligence or the phrase was coined, which was coined in 1955 by John McCarthy at Dartmouth College, which then he wrote all that down, which is the precursor to the 1956 gathering at Dartmouth College on AI, which set the world up for all that we have today. Based upon Alan Turing's work and everything like that. So that was the acceleration. But 1955 was an interesting year, I guess, when you even just look at it. Just Steve Jobs was born that year from Apple, right? Bill Gates from Microsoft was born. Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the internet, was born. Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google, was born. And Einstein died that year, right? There was some advances with William Shockley and the silicon that we see today, why Silicon Valley came to be what it is, that started back then, and now you see that with companies like Nvidia and so forth, I mean, I guess in 1955 Doc Brown went Back to the Future as well, right, or whatever, Marty McFly did. So there was something in the air in 1955. But if you go through the course of history of this last 70 years. We have made certain, as a human race, we've made certain advancements into this technology and what it could do. But there were times when the world was too afraid. Governments needed to stop it. And so there was 2 AI winters that we experienced before we got to here, as everybody knows, probably watching. But those were significant because it stifled the progress. That lifted right toward into our 2020s, right so after that side, things began to change, and of course the dawn of the transformer and all the things that are happening with OpenAI really accelerated that, like I mentioned in November 30th, 2022. But I think it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here, because this is really just the beginning in many ways. Although we've had quite a bit of stuff leading up to that people don't realize. This has been in the works for quite a while. But this short period of time, these last few years, things have accelerated fast. As a matter of fact, there was a chart I just recently saw that was talking about how long it will take us to get to AGI, right? Artificial general intelligence, going from what we think we're in as artificial narrow intelligence and what that could look like. And to get to AGI, there was a prediction just maybe even like a year or two ago that it would take 80 years. Right. And now they're saying, actually, no, it's only going to take 8 years. So things are rapidly transforming right before our eyes, faster than they had done over the past 70 years.
Well, let's go back to the future. See what I did there. Let's talk about where we are then today, because I keep hearing AI agents and digital twins. Potentially there could be an avatar me, an invisible me. There could be, I suppose, even a deep fake me. That's doing all these different things. That an itinerary for my day at work or my itinerary for my weekend. That these bots essentially could be going off and doing things for me. But so there could be effectively more than one me. How do you see that becoming mainstream? What do you predict is going to happen here? How's that going to play out?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think I guess in the words of Marty McFly, it's very heavy, right? But I think the way that I've been looking at this is I borrowed a term a couple years ago, and that I've started kind of really going deeper on is a term called multi-potentiality, and so, I mentioned when we were building out synthetic humans, we weren't creating digital twins of our, assets that we had in the company, but we were creating digital twins of our customers and learning and researching and interacting. But I started thinking about what would it look like, just to your point about creating digital twins of ourselves, right? And so when you think about it, you could have a version of yourself, like, going on that Zoom call through, it doesn't have to be through Pickle AI where it's a representation of me and I'm talking. It actually becomes me talking and answering as if it was myself. So it's like my own personal RAG, right? So it's going to, pull information that people are interacting with, almost. And then you could have a version where it handles all your tasks, like you said, but also like, side hustles, right? Makes me money, builds out businesses, builds out other skills, right? And the concept of multi-potentiality, and the way I see it is that people have multiple needs, multiple wants, but they also have multiple skills, gifts, and abilities. And so the only problem is that we have limited time, and we have limited ways to be able to accomplish all that we want to do with those skills, abilities, and gifts. And so being able to multiply that ability or those abilities is key, right? And so it's going to change the way that things begin, and we begin to interact with each other. There might be AI might stand for artificial influencers in the future, where we all want to be like what that AI influencer is showing. Or I might have a version of myself. Now I'm married, but let's say I'm in the dating world and I have a version of myself that's in the dating app, and then someone else has a version of their self in the dating app, and they're working on making sure that that this is the right match, right? Or they're swiping right and swiping left so that, we don't have to. But then you could take it where, I might have a version of myself with my kids in Roblox or some gaming platform or whatever. But then you could see that companies then, if there's this many versions of us, would have to begin to not just cater and market to your particular needs, but the needs of all your other selves, if you will. So I might like Coca-Cola in the real world, but Pepsi in the virtual world or wherever that I'm at. So I call it multimorphic marketing, because they were going to begin to have to target all the different multiple versions of you in a different way. So they're going to have to know a different multidimensional aspect of every human. I think it gets interesting when it comes to work, like we were talking about earlier. and companies, because if you think about it, like today, we're looking at how humans work together with agents, but imagine companies really needing humans that have their own agents, and so you could see that, and their own, and all those skills that they've built up on their digital DNA. So you could potentially see that companies aren't just hiring you for you, but they're hiring you for all the versions of you that come along with you, right? So you've now amplified your potential in that concept of multi-potentiality for a company, and so that could be a possible next step for us.
Well, and that obviously it opens up a huge change with respect to hiring, because now when I get hired by a company, I'm working for that company. I'm probably not also sending my agent to work for the competitor or all the competitors. And then if I have these multiple identities, like I think about it's like, so I go to 10 meetings simultaneously. My agent goes to 10 meetings simultaneously using my knowledge base and whatever. What happens then when I agree to conflicting things, or my agents effectively, agree to, kind of conflicting things, because there'd have to be some real-time updating and what have you. So, I mean, when you think about this, this multiple versions, how do you see it impacting the whole hiring process or even our self-identity?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions that go deep like that. Where I mean, the first one is, does my wife even want another version of me running around? It's like, I can't remember all the things she told me already. This one's gonna, but maybe that helps me. Maybe it augments me, so now I don't forget all the things that she's asked me to do. But I do see that there's these aspects of, it could really mess up. It could really have a lot of ethical or ramification concepts, but. Does everybody want to upload their data of themselves, of their lives, to something that's going to be able to be all knowing of you, and go that way? But I think we have to kind of take a step back and look at, if we just maybe look at not just the agents that come along with us, but just what's happening right now. There's a shift, right? We're talking about into agentic AI, and the way I kind of see that illustrator, or the way that looks, and if I had a whiteboard, I'd kind of draw this out. But basically, and this is something that I had brought to MIT when we were working with them, and so we kind of began to map this out. But basically, when you look at the way the work has gotten done for many years, obviously up to this point, it's been a human. If you represent that human by an H, so if I was to draw that on a whiteboard, you have an H, a human working with another human, H, in that line of work, right? And they've all worked together. Now, of course, there's been the rise of machines and all sorts of kind of other things, but there's never been anything else that can think and act and do like a human does, right? And even we govern the processes of even what those machines would do. But what's rising now, and what we're talking about, is having a human working with a human, working with a human, working with an agent. And that agent could be represented by an A. So you have A, right? So, but very quickly you might see, just like what Sam Altman was saying, more A's coming into the mix. So it's A. And then you might have an interaction where it becomes HA, and then where it gets even wilder or more interesting is that if you're bringing those agents to the mix, then you could begin to see a world where it's H. So that picture, and then obviously we know what could happen after that, is quite interesting. But where I think it could go is a little bit different, actually. So we could go to that level, and everyone's talking about how we would interact with AI side by side. But there's a book that I really enjoyed, by Henry Kissinger, called Genesis. And this book came out after Henry Kissinger had passed away. So it's been released posthumously, and it was co-authored with Eric Schmidt, who I mentioned earlier, the former CEO of Google, and Craig Mundie from Microsoft. And so Eric and Craig released this book. But what was interesting in that book was it was talking about how there may be something, and they made many points, but one of these was, aside from the warnings that Henry Kissinger was giving on AI, was interesting about the rise of the merging together of humans and AI in a next phase to create maybe a different type of leadership over the humanity, over the globe, that is augmented with both of those things merged together. So going from what they were saying Homo sapien to Homo technicus, or what they called the artificial human. And what basically I kind of began to see of that is, like an extension of what we're doing now with a human working with an agent. It becomes to be where the, whether through its brain implants or whatever, the AI is now the agent, already embedded into the human, and now it's leveraging the human capabilities, and along with the advancement of the AI capabilities together to achieve way more that we could ever achieve. So that so it's kind of wild. Where that could go is quite I guess it could be quite interesting. So,
and how real do you believe that to be, Roger? That book, I mean, is it kind of way out there, or how realistic is that now?
Yeah, I think like I was saying, the reality is that we're already now stepping into a world where we're going to work alongside of agents and AI, right? And in some ways it's already kind of working for us, and we're already using it. In some ways we may already be seeing or interacting with an AI coworker or an AI call center agent, and that's already kind of beginning to happen. So you could see that. You also see that people are augmenting their education and their abilities to write things and do more creative things with creative tools from the generative AI side, right? So just the simple use of ChatGPT can write beautiful things and stuff, as well as or at least things that are comprised of beautiful things that humans wrote that bring that out. But also with imagery and video too, with all the new tools like Runway and Sora and all those. But so how real is it? I think it's a real possibility, because we're already beginning to do it. We're already augmenting ourselves enough because we're getting used to, hey, I could do this faster. This is handling my inbox better than I was. It's handling my calendar better than it was. It's booking things for me that I didn't even remember to book, and it reminds me. So there's a lot of different things that it's already doing. So what's to say that we wouldn't already jump to that? If you think about the human body, we're already augmenting ourselves with, if you wear glasses, or I wear contact lenses, or some people have artificial hearts or other things in their body, that's an augmentation of us being able to preserve life or go farther or be healthier, and or whatnot. But you could see that somebody might say, hey, well, now I want to be able to do that through the way that I think and I interact and I remember, and augment memories. The thing that I had created called augmented intelligence and led with the Oracle example I gave earlier was very much doing that for children with autism, like my oldest son, who can remember a million facts, but sometimes he can't remember your name the next day, even though he knows you. How do we leverage AI to be a great reminder to really bring that to pass, especially with people with Alzheimer's and so forth. But where I think it can get kind of wild, where I don't know if this is a reality, is the potential of when you start getting the sci-fi realm of things. Because if you see a future where, or if you believe there's a future where human and machine merge, and there begins to be this Homo technicus, then you'll have multiple human machines all over the world. Maybe it's those who have access to it, so it separates people or whatever from others. But because they're machines, they could potentially be connected to a central AI node, and you might have an AI hive mind for certain populations of people doing certain types of activities. So it might control or help augment or increase the way that we look at medicine or healthcare, or maybe even like the way we do work, right? So whole groups would have this mind sharing. You could have experience sharing. It could get pretty deep. I wrote a little bit about this on one of my Medium articles recently. If anybody's interested in seeing a little bit more about that, but I think there could be a future of a collective intelligence, or what I call it. So going from symbiotic intelligence, which is human, merging with AI, to collective intelligence or swarm intelligence, where it begins to enact in that way. But again, that becomes a lot more like, whoa, I don't know about that. That's kind of wild. Will we ever get to that? And maybe some people say, well, I hope we don't. but there could be some really great advancements if we did. So
Yeah, so no, I mean, it's super fascinating. I mean, either we get to the Star Trek Borg, which is a bad thing, resistance is futile. But since we're doing book reviews or whatever, mentioning books, the book you mentioned sounds fascinating. Um, it's not Homo technicus, but Homo Deus by Noah Yuval Harari also looks at, okay, what's the future of AI? And then I'll throw out there The Coming Next Wave by Mustafa Suleyman, who's now the president of AI at Microsoft, um, looks at, and it's a little bit of a bleaker look, but it also looks to see, how synthetic biology and AI, how AI advances all of this, right? So while you're thinking about these things and writing about these things, what do you see as some of the biggest ethical or societal challenges, right? Because this could go really well. It could go poorly. It could create more stratification between the have and have nots. So, you know, what do we need to be thinking about before AI becomes so deeply embedded in our lives that maybe I don't know, that AHA, maybe it becomes aha, and that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think there's probably a lot more than what we can fit into the time that we have together. And honestly, there's probably a lot of really great people that, including yourselves, that probably have even better ideas than I have or views on it. But I think one thing I've seen is that, at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, this is about people, this is about humans. And we have some incredible things that we do that are different than AI, right? And so it'd be really painful to watch that get taken away or watch that, disappear. I did some research years ago and found that there was four main C's that made us human. What makes us human? And so we're cultural, we're creative, we're curious, and we're compassionate. And there's many more things that humans can do, obviously, but those things seem that no AI can do yet, at least, or ever. And having that culture, having that connection back to our surroundings and the real tangible human interaction is super important. But the creativity that we have, the curiosity that we have, as well as the compassion that we could have and that we do need, that empathy, is something that I hope we don't lose, right? As something that might disappear in the society. If you think about what Isaac Asimov I mentioned earlier and what he talks about. Isaac Asimov had a book, that I read. I mean, many books here on my bookshelf, but one of the ones was going deep into some of the things he was predicting, right? He's like a techno prophet of his time, right? And it wasn't just the robot laws. There was other things he looked at, right? He looked at that there would be a future where people would, begin to have smaller and smaller devices that they would end up interacting with and screens. So miniaturization. He said that, things, you might send information up into space and things would come down and the paper would come out like a fax machine. He said, all these different things that we see today. But one of those was that he predicted that we would begin to interact with each other through telemonitors, is what he called it. So kind of like a telecommuting, and what that would do is it would break down. It could have a detriment on society because they would lose that human interaction. So the more that we begin to depend then on agents to be able to do our bidding and be out there, the less we'll have maybe that human interaction or for our children's children to learn from those mistakes or from those interactions because we're no longer, integrating into society, but our avatars or our digital selves or twins or synthetic humans are integrating. So there could be a real deep challenge with what happens to humanity and how they interact. But you could also see, of course, so many different ethical things that go along with, the leveraging these agents, even just at the form they're at now, because people are worried, right? They're worried that it's going to take, will this take my job? Will this take, my voice, right? Will I still have the ability to vote? Will my vote matter? Will I be able to still win in this competition against someone who's leveraging something that's even more advanced than I am, and so forth? So there's a myriad of questions that people have. I don't think we have the answers yet as a society, but I think we do have the opportunity. to begin to put in guardrails, to put in not to stifle progress, but to be able to input ways to reduce bias, to reduce some of the outputs that might happen, along with the future that could materialize that isn't the positive way. We could put in some positive aspects, but we need to do that, as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Roger, I think we've got time for a couple of quick fire questions. So I'm going to ask you a question. The first question I'd like to ask you, and I'll let Kevin jump in next, but what's the one bit of advice that you would give to business leaders, business professionals out there that are listening, looking at an AI-driven future?
Yeah, so I think it's first and foremost, pretty much every company that I've talked to or I've seen, everybody knows that AI is here. AI is not going away, and every company is embracing it in some degree. I think every company needs to lean in and definitely dive into that. I think it's the key though. The takeaway is, build it upon your people, build it for people. Put people at the center of this, really understand the user needs, why you need this, and why you're doing this. Because at the end of the day, again, this isn't for technology's sake, for just technology's sake, or just to make a dollar, or just to reduce things or make it more efficient. It's how do we amplify human potential and augment their lives and our lives. So again, humans still at the center. So, and like I said earlier, the AI of tomorrow needs the UX of today.
So I guess this will be then the final question. I mean, I was going to say what excites you most over the next 5 or 10 years, but that 10-year time frame sounds like that's way too long. So
anything could happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so let's say over the next 2 to 3 years in this AI space, this AI agentic space, what excites you the most?
Yeah. So aside from all the things that we talked about, the potential things that some might seem ominous, I see a different side where the exciting thing to me is truly that augmented intelligence, that augmented ability, that augmented potential. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to see how we can, how our lives can get better, right? Better health advice, better medical care, better even interactions that we might have, understanding people and relationships, better memories, or ways to remember things to enhance the memories that we already have, better ways to bring some of our stories and our messages to life, and also multiply the amazing gifts and talents and skills that so many of us have. Actually, every human has across the globe. Being able to multiply this, so I get really excited about seeing how that can not just streamline a business, not just make things more efficient, like we want to do, obviously, even at Chai, but how it really begins to, help humanity and amplify human potential.
That's well said. And that's I love that optimism about kind of bringing out the best from all of us.
Yeah,
exactly. And multiple versions of yourself. That's just mind blowing. So
just one version of you, Rob. But
I know. I'm not sure anyone could cope with multiple versions of me, but I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Kevin, Roger, it's been fantastic talking to you both today. Really interesting topic for our viewers, and thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe. Please drop us a comment. Do get in touch. Our links will be down below. We're all on LinkedIn and other channels nowadays. But for now, I'm Rob Scott from AI Today. Thanks for watching.